people in Portland, like city councilors in Portland, who didn't vote. They actually voted against the defund of the police movement. And so their house was surrounded and they were intimidated. And so, the question is this how you get political representation in America now? Because apparently it works, right? If you say, hey, if you vote against us, if you go against us, if you act politically against us, we're going to firebomb your house. And that person says, okay, you win. You win. Just don't firebomb my house and I'll do whatever you say. It's like, we can engage in that too, I guess. If that's where we want to go, if we're now in a world, if the leftists have so destroyed America, destroyed the republic, destroyed the democracy they claim to be fighting for, that physical violence is how you get listened to now, that's the world you set up. That's the world you created. That's the world you have allowed to come to fruition because of the mainstream media's failure to report on the destructive aspects of Antifa and Black Lives Matter and what's really going on, which is intimidation, which is the destruction of the democracy.
InfoWars has delivered because you have delivered. InfoWars is organic, pro-human resistance to the globalist takeover and to Satan's plan to kill humanity. This is real. You can see Bill Gates announcing he owns your body. You can see the globalists announcing they own your family. The good news is, for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction, and you are that reaction. So understand, you are not supporters of the info war. You're not calling in to thank me. You are the info war. You are the resistance. You are the future. So now, with 25 days out from the election, spread the word about the broadcast. Buy the products and support us to stay on air in the face of the enemy. You kept us in attack formation. And pray for us. You do that trifecta. Nothing can stop you. You control your destiny. You are victory. Take action now.
Welcome back, folks. It's Harrison Smith sitting in for Owen Schroyer, who is finally able to go inside and get warm there in that icy wind of Washington, D.C., getting ready for the big event tomorrow at noon, the Stop the Steal Million MAGA March in Washington, D.C. What he said was that, just through his experience leading the caravan, talking to Trump supporters, he's worried that if leftists try their normal tactics and try their normal disruptive behavior that typically goes, is totally accepted, right? If the Trump supporters actually fight back, then the police rush in and break it all up, right? The leftists can come in, attack people, nothing happens. The minute the Trump supporters start to fight back, the police rush in and break everything up. It's typical and has been done over and over again. But he said, he's worried that the spirit of the Republicans, which is always just almost frustratingly patient, just constantly being attacked by the left, constantly having our events and our organizations broken up and assaulted and just destroyed by the left because the police are told by the leftist mayors to allow this to happen. But he's worried that if that patience has run out, and that if people try to disrupt the rally tomorrow, the Republicans, the Trump supporters, will vent their frustration upon them because the frustration has mounted to an intolerable degree. There's a video by a YouTuber called Razor Fist, and I keep mentioning it. Maybe I'll just download it and play it tonight on Election Countdown because it's really good. And the point that he makes is that for so long, conservatives have held their tongue. They've held back. They've stood by, right, and just allowed all this to happen because we knew in our heart of hearts the system is still strong. The system can still be used in order to bring about the fairness that we demand. And yet, what happened last week, what happened on election night, was that final outlet, that final release valve was taken from us. Our vote. Our vote was our final sacred ability to fight back against what is being done to us, and that was taken away from us. Our vote was taken away from us. Our vote was stolen from all Trump supporters. And so now it's like, why should we uphold the system? Why should we continue to act as though, we can get some sort of recompense by behaving and by engaging politically? Why shouldn't we do what Antifa does. I mean, you have people in Pennsylvania, according to Jack Posobiec, who said, no, I'm not going to call for a recount because I don't want my house being firebombed. You have even today, I believe, Andy Ngo was tweeting out a video of Antifa attacking like a government-sponsored like cleanup crew who is in charge of going and like cleaning up after the homeless people, and Antifa attacked them and like tried to burn down their building because they think it's anti-homeless to try to clean up after homeless people. But you had even more so people in Portland, like city councilors in Portland, who didn't vote. They actually voted against the defund the police movement. And so their house was surrounded and they were intimidated. And so, you know, the question is this how you get political representation in America now? Because apparently it works, right? If you say, hey, if you vote against us, if you go against us, if you act politically against us, we're going to firebomb your house. And that person says, okay, you win. You win. Just don't firebomb my house and I'll do whatever you say. It's like, we can engage in that too, I guess. You know, if that's where we want to go, if we're now in a world, if the leftists have so destroyed America, destroyed the republic, destroyed the democracy they claim to be fighting for, that physical violence is how you get listened to now, that's the world you set up. That's the world you created. That's the world you have allowed to come to fruition because of the mainstream media's failure to report on the destructive aspects of Antifa and Black Lives Matter and what's really going on, which is intimidation, which is the destruction of the democracy. Same way that you have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Don Beyer and other representatives in our government, in the U.S. government, you have representatives saying, we're going to make lists and we're going to punish these people. We're going to hold these people to account. It's like, okay, all right. So we're now in a world where you can't vote for who you want to vote for. You can't publicly support the things you want to support. You'll be deleted. You'll be attacked. You'll be taken down. The people who even vote into office will refuse to carry out their mandate because they're afraid of violent retribution. And we're being told, you know, we're evil. We have to die. We have to die out. There it is. I mean, this is it. This image right here that you're seeing, one woman being surrounded by people doing a salute who are in her face, threatening her and intimidating her. You know, if this is the world that we're in, you know, maybe that's just how we'll have to engage. Maybe that's the world you created. You have made this bed, so it's time to get screwed in it, right? Like, we can do that. We can, if that's the world we want to go to, be prepared to find out that might makes right and we're a hell of a lot stronger than you. We don't want to do that. We have tried to be patient for so long. We have for so long held our tongues, for so long acted like the Christians in the Roman Empire, just willingly being led to the lion's den to be eaten alive because we know what we uphold is greater than, you know, our own personal vengeance or whatever may inspire us to cause violence. But, you know, if it's over, if we're just going to be endlessly attacked and even the people we elect into office, despite the fraud, right? If we're even allowed to elect people into office, they don't stand up for us because of the threat of violence, then that's the new paradigm that we need to be working in. And so if there's violence, if there's retribution, if, you know, it turns out that you've created a world where might makes right and violence is how you get political representation, be prepared to regret that. So that's all I have to say. And of course, he's also talking about the voter fraud and how to get this information out there and how to make people aware of this. And I've been making the case that the voter fraud needs to be prosecuted like a murder case. If you watch true crime shows, if you're a fan of like podcasts that detail real life, you know, hunting serial killers and that sort of stuff, you know that, you know, to convict somebody on murder, you don't need a video of them committing the murder. You don't need a confession by them. You need to fulfill certain requirements in order to remove all reasonable doubt. And I think we've done that. In fact, prosecuting the voter fraud case in this instance is, and again, if you're a fan of true crime, you know a lot of murders fall into the same sort of categories. They all sort of follow the same trajectory. And so what this case is, prosecuting voter fraud as a whole, right? It can get a little bit messy if you go down and you get into the individual things and like, you know, oh, well, did this person do this correctly? Did they do it wrong? Well, this person broke the law over here. Well, this machine wasn't working quite right. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the wider scale, zoomed out vision of prosecuting voter fraud as a whole, prosecuting, you know, the suspect, which would be the Democratic Party as a whole, as one holistic case. And so what we're dealing with here, like prosecuting this murder case would be like, okay, this woman disappeared, and she disappeared right after she and her husband had a really big fight, and her husband has a history of violence, and he's gone to jail for beating women before. Also, a month ago, he took out $1 million life insurance policy on her where he's the only beneficiary. And, you know, he also went on a mysterious fishing trip the day after, you know, she went missing. Oh, also, by the way, he spent the last 6 months telling everybody that, you know, he would never murder anybody. He's been, you know, he spent the last 6 months talking about how he'd never kill anybody. He's not a murderer. He's definitely not, anybody that calls him a murderer is a crazy conspiracy theorist. But, you know, he did get rid of his security system. You know, he did take out the insurance policy. He is benefiting massively from all of this happening. And yet he's claiming he's innocent. So, I mean, this is the type of overwhelming evidence that we have. If this were to be tried like a murder case in the court of law, it would be a slam dunk. And I've been saying that's the messaging we need to be using because, hey, if you have, especially if you have a murder case where you have like multiple suspects or multiple people working together, and you have this overwhelming evidence, but you maybe still need a confession, you want that rock solid case, we need to be telling Democrats everybody who was engaged in any sort of form of voter fraud whatsoever, all these people in the videos that we see filling out ballots and stuff, we say, look, you made some mistakes. You got involved with something. Maybe you didn't realize what you were involved in, and now you're in too deep. But hey, you want to tell us some details, help us close this case, help us get the convictions, and maybe we'll go lenient on you. Otherwise, be prepared to be convicted and spend the rest of your life in jail.
The day of doom is here. Now that's a double-edged sword. It can be a day of doom for humanity, a day of doom for Christians, conservatives, nationalists, or patriots, or it can be a day of doom for the Satanists, the pedophiles, the globalists, the radical Islamists. It really comes down to what you're going to stand for. They have launched their full attack. They are calling for the very end of the existence of our country itself because we have not defended our ethos, our identity, and who we are. But if we rise to the challenge, if we awaken, if we have the courage to simply challenge the censors and the thugs and the bullies, we'll find on the other side that all the turbulence basically ends, and there's nothing but blue skies and clarity and smooth sailing after it. The truth is, bowing to tyrants, bowing to bullies, puts you in a position of living on your knees as a slave. But standing up to the bullies and saying no to their program empowers you. And that's where we are as a civilization. Now, obviously, Joe Biden has stolen the election so far, and President Trump is challenging him. But if any of us thought President Trump was invincible, we were fools. He was up against the Chinese communists, the EU, Hollywood, the Satanists, big academia, all the leftists, all the scam artists, radical Islam, big tech, and so much more. The truth is, Trump was an anomaly, a sucker punch directly to the throat of the New World Order. So was Bolsonaro, and so were so many others. The truth is, humanity was in a trance before and wasn't even resisting. But now, in the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a global awakening that is spiritual, that is individual, that isn't black, that isn't brown, that isn't white, that isn't old, that isn't young, that isn't male, that isn't female, but is human. And so they're going to try to discredit our revolution and discredit our awakening. They're going to try to bring in socialism and global mask mandates and forced inoculations and shutdowns of economies, all to make us get scared and submit to their program of dehumanization. But I believe, and history has shown, that it's going to backfire on what they've done. It's going to blow up in their face. But regardless of what happens, there are all these false political paradigms, all these false political teachings that we've laid out here. InfoWars is hated by the establishment because we cover the real paradigm of the usurpers, of the conquerors, of the corrupt, versus those that support the Renaissance and the ethos of Christ. We believe in the brotherhood of man and woman. We believe in unity under our red blood and our spirit. We believe in the human spirit and ideas unifying us and what we stand for unifying us, not the color of our skin. But everything the leftists do is the opposite of that, to turn us against each other, because they know we have unity, they know we have strength. So they seek disunity in the name of unity, and they are frauds. And all their works are easy to defeat if you just pull back and are conscious and realize their manipulation. In closing, I'll say this. We're running the biggest sale yet of the year, because without your funding, we won't be here on air. It's the American Crisis. Emergency Lockdown 2 is coming. Support InfoWars in the fight against total economic collapse and Biden's martial law disguised as Lockdown 2. We've got to sell our products now. We've got to get all the amazing turmeric products, bodies, the X2 iodine, the DNA Force Plus, the t-shirts, the books, the water filtration, the non-GMO seeds, all of it out of our warehouses now. Because the word is, as I warned 2 months ago, when Biden steals the election, is a total takeover and permanent collapse of martial law. So get prepared, fund the Infowar into the future so we can continue to fight at InfoWarsStore.com. But whatever you do, spread the word about the live transmission. God bless you all.